How's it going, reptile lovers? Today we will be talking about keeping reptiles and amphibians in captivity. And are you ready for them? Keeping reptiles and amphibians in captivity is still a little bit taboo, I would say. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but they're not commonplace. A lot more people are going to have dogs and even cats, or rabbits and guinea pigs for that matter, in their household rather than having a reptile or an amphibian. Now, for the case of reptiles, I would actually say that they are, I don't like saying that they're pets, but keeping one in your household is probably going to be much easier than keeping a dog or a cat alive. Now, there are a couple of parameters you need to watch out for. You choose a reptile that's actually relatively easy to keep in captivity. There are reptiles that need very specific parameters that are more advanced, and as you evolve or progress in the hobby, those might be good animals to consider. Amphibians are just generally quite a bit harder to keep. You pick the species you want to pick, you kind of do your research, look at some videos, read books, articles online. If, for example, you want to get a corn snake or a ball python, like one of the more classic animals, you're going to find tons of literature and videos. I, for example, keep Aspidilops. Aspidilops lubricus and Aspidilops guttatus. Those are a bit more niche, and you're going to have to do a bit more research. So that's the first point. Do your research. I had to do quite a bit of research on what do we actually know about how they live in the wild, and then how do I transfer that into captivity, because there isn't that much information. Also look at where you're going to get it from. I always advise to get captive bred. If you are getting wild caught, it should be in your goals to potentially breed it in the future, to make them available as captive bred animals. Usually wild caught animals don't do as well in captivity. Also keep that in mind. 2, you're going to want to do a little bit of preparation before you get the animal. Preparation is going to be caging. So you're caging, are you going to buy it? Are you going to build it yourself? Wood? Are you going to use just purely glass? Are you going to use metal? Are you going to build them out of concrete? Plastic tops. Also, you can look at one of my previous videos. The parameters in the cage need to be adequate for the species that you're keeping. In the building phase, you also have to think about lighting. Lighting is usually going to be some form of white light. You want UV light, which is usually coupled with heating. You've got your heating, you've got your UV, UVB, UVA, UVB. That's Java in the back. Also, if you have cats, make sure your caging is cat-proof. That's a good tip. You can, if you want to make your life easier, 1, put in a timer. So that's going to turn the lights on at a certain time and turn them back off at a certain time. So that in the morning and in the evening, the same time, light goes on and off. You don't have to do it manually yourself. That will make your life so much easier. Then for heating, you might want to get a thermostat. There are tons of options out there. I have personally used them in the past. I live in an area where temperatures are relatively stable, so I know at what time of the day the light needs to go on and for how long, so that it stays at the right heat parameters, but that comes with experience. So I just put everything on a timer now. When I have newer species or more complex species that I'm keeping, I will use that timer to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Still in point number 2, I would still put it in point number 2, kind of catering in your animal welfare, is feeding. What are you going to feed your animal? You might live in a place where you can go to a pet shop and buy frozen rodents or live crickets or fruit flies, whatever it may be. For other people, feeding some of the animals is not the easiest thing. So I breed my own fruit flies, I breed my own mealworms, I tried breeding my own crickets, that didn't go so well. You just need to kind of pick and choose what you want to do if you do have to breed. And I do breed my own feeder mice as well, which that has its ups and downs. And then in that same category, I'm going to put water. If it's a nice vivarium, bioactive, you're going to want the water bowl to look nice. You're not just going to use some, take-out plastic cup or whatever. Another consideration is going to be the size of your water bowl. A general rule of thumb is your animal should be able to soak in the water bowl. Not a lot of animals are going to do it unless they are quite aquatic, like my rhino rat snake spends quite a lot of time in its water bowl. If you do notice that your snake or lizard or whatever is soaking, and it usually doesn't soak unless it's shedding, your animal might be sick. So you might want to look out for mites, or if you do have a vet that will work with reptiles, you should consider talking to them. The last point I would consider before getting an animal is safety. Is it safe for the animal, and is it safe for yourself? What do I mean by is it safe for the animal? This mainly has to do with caging. So a couple of points you need to watch out for is, for example, cables and heating, especially those two right there. Are your cables stowed away? Are they safe? Your animal's not going to electrocute itself. And is the heating safe? The animal's not going to burn itself. You also want to make sure that there are no traps inside your cage. What do I mean? Your hardscape, the pieces of wood. Very common example I'll use here. If you have a piece of wood, of driftwood, and there's a hole inside the wood, make sure that that hole is big enough for the animal to entirely pass through. You don't want the animal to go through and then get its head stuck and it's going to break its spine trying to get back out of there. Another thing that does happen is if you put rocks inside your housing, make sure your rocks are well fixed. If you have a big piece of rock, put it in first so it touches the bottom of your enclosure. You don't want to put it above your substrate because animals are going to dig under the rock and boom, rock falls onto them and you'll have an animal pancake. If you have tortoises or turtles, make sure your hardscape is well fixed. Tortoises are going to be a bit more robust, but turtles can go under a rock and jam themselves in there and drown themselves because they can't get back out. If you bring a dangerous animal into your home, you better make sure that everything is as safe as possible for yourself and, by extent, to the animal as well, to keep them in a good condition. So I'm going to make a video a bit later on keeping venomous snakes. This is also the case for crocodilians. Crocodilians is another subject. If you're going to bring crocodilians into your home, you better be on point. Venomous snakes, you better be on point. Snapping turtles, I don't have any experience with snapping turtles, but from what I've seen, if that thing goes for your finger and actually gets your finger, you don't have a finger anymore. So for all those animals, you really want to consider, how do I make it safe for myself as well. Ball python, you can get nipped by a ball python. It's a bit of blood, it's not going to hurt that much. To recap, we've talked about doing proper research before you get your animal, get your caging down before you get your animal, choose what animal you want to get beforehand, of course, and then considerations in your caging: heat, light, water, food, and how are you going to make it as safe for the animal and as safe for yourself, if it's a dangerous animal, to actually keep it. I hope that I've helped you a bit further along in your journey, and I hope you much joy with your new companion. See you next time.